ever notice when you're running late, traffic you don't normally encounter on your normal ride all of a sudden seems to appear? It makes you more late. Anyway, really late this morning, leaving almost 10 minutes late than normal. Thankfully, I only work about 12-13 minutes away from my home, but you know, I need time to get settled and get everything booked up when I get to work. Anyway, off to work. This is all messed up. So, now it's even more messed up. Whatever. So I want to talk about. There we go. So I want to talk about gun rights in Canada. It's not something I've really talked about in great detail before. I may have mentioned guns or the fact that I'm a gun enthusiast before in other videos, but I was talking to a colleague yesterday who happens to belong to the same club that I belong to. I'm a probationary member because I just joined, but he's a full member of this club. I've never seen him there because I've only been like once or twice, but we'll probably go together at some point. But we were talking about, you know, how to safely store your guns in your house, right? So he and I are in similar situations. We're into guns, but our wives are not. My wife, when she found out I was interested in getting my gun license and getting some guns, she was a little bit perturbed by it. I think she was worried about the whole thing. But in any event, she's not interested in shooting, becoming part of the sport at all. Similar to this guy, this colleague of mine. And we were talking about storage of firearms, and I said, well, basically I'm going to use a biometric safe for the handgun, because if I'm not home, I want my wife to have access to it so that she can defend herself if she needs to. And he goes, oh, that's illegal. It's illegal for her to use your gun. And it kind of struck me as kind of an odd thing to say. I'm like, yeah, it'd be illegal for her to use the gun in like you know, to have it on her while driving to the club or something, because she doesn't have a license to own, right? But if somebody's breaking into your house to do who knows what, rob you, steal from you, rape your wife, who fucking cares about the legality of whether or not she's allowed to have it? As a matter of fact, I'd rather she have access to it than not have access to it and know that she had something there to save her life than didn't. And I you know, I registered that thought. I mean, of course I wasn't, you know, screaming at the guy. But it's like, well, yeah, but you know, I have a baseball bat for her and a knife, you know, if she needs it. And I'm like, that's not a real equalizer for a woman who might be outweighed by her assailant by 80 pounds, who has a reach on her, you know, of a foot or a foot and a half because he's bigger than her. I don't know what his wife, you know, what his wife's stature is like, but most men can overpower most women. And having a baseball bat is not a great equalizer because it puts you within arm's reach of an assailant. And if they can take it from you, and given that most men, again, can overpower a woman, all he needs to do is catch that baseball bat, and now it's his. So, anyway, I said, yeah, I don't care about the legality of it. If I have it in a biometric safe, and she needs to use it, she can use it. Now, if I'm home, of course, I'll use it. I have the experience with the weapon. You know, I can hopefully not panic and take a guy out if I need to, but yeah, just this idea, oh, well, that's against the law. I'm like, I know it's against the law, but in a certain situation, I don't think the courts would decide against, right? Now, it doesn't matter, the RCMP might still take my weapons away from me, take my firearms away from me. And this speaks to, you know, the stupid gun laws and property rights laws we have in Canada. There's no castle doctrine in Canada like there is in the United States. There's no, I mean, if somebody's breaking into your home and you have a firearm, the only time it's legal to discharge it is if they're coming at you, meaning to do you harm. Which makes sense. I mean, you shouldn't be shooting someone in the back. You say, hey, I got a gun here, and they go to run out your door and you shoot them in the back. Well, yeah, you should be charged with, at the very least, manslaughter. Or actually, they call it murder too in Canada. But in terms of property rights, now I'm no legal scholar, but I've read a few things about this, and what it comes down to in terms of property rights for Canadians is if somebody takes your property, whether it be your car, your radio, your phone, or whatever, you have the right to try and recover it from them. You don't have a right to assault them in recovering it from them. And in Canada, assault means I'm going to shoot you, or I'm going to hit you, or I'm going to punch you, or I'm going to kick your ass. That, just saying it, is assault. Now, how that would work out in the terms of, court proceedings, if you said, I told him to give me my phone back or I'd kick his ass, would a judge really say, well, you threatened assault on him to get your property back, so you're going to be charged? I don't know if that would happen. Maybe. But the point is, in order for you to use force against someone to recover property that's been stolen from you, they must first use force against you in resistance of you recovering it. So this puts all the power in the hands of criminals who would steal from you, or who would damage your property. And this, to me, is just asinine. There was a case in Canada, I think it was in Alberta, could be wrong, somewhere not in Ontario, a few years back, that sort of crystallized this. And when I heard this case and I heard the story, I was stymied by the whole thing. I was like, what the hell? Why do we have these laws like this? It doesn't make any sense. This guy's house was, I guess he'd been in some sort of dispute with somebody. There'd been an argument somewhere. Anyway, these people had come to his house and started setting fire to his property. They started setting fire to an outbuilding. I think he had a shed or a workshop or something not attached to his main house. They set fire to it. And while they were setting fire to it, he pulled out a shotgun and he discharged it. Now, he didn't discharge it. He didn't, as far as I know, he didn't hit anybody. Maybe he did, but I don't think he hit anybody. But he fired it in their direction in order to basically to chase them off. And he did chase them off. Now, as far as I know, he didn't fire upon them once they started to leave. But he was yelling at them and they weren't responding. He was saying, get off my property, stop that, yelling all sorts of expletives, that kind of thing. And they weren't responding. They just continued to try and set his place ablaze. So he got out his gun and he started firing at them. My recollection of the exact details of this case are not crystal. So if I'm getting anything wrong and some people know about this case, I'm sure they'll comment about it. But he fired at them, didn't hit any of them. But the RCMP took his weapons and he was charged. Took his firearms and he was charged. So basically all of his firearms were taken off him. I mean, he had thousands of dollars worth of firearms. Not just the shotgun that he was using. I think it was a shotgun. But everything, all of his firearms. And I get the law in the case. He didn't have a legal right to discharge his firearm outside of, designated areas where, where he was, he couldn't legally discharge his firearm. But I think the courts should be, should give some leeway to somebody defending defending their property from destruction. And I think some leeway should be given to people defending their property from theft. But no, the law states that in order for you to use force against somebody who's stolen your property, your rightfully owned property, they have to first use force against you in resisting your recovery of it. Well, I'm sorry, but somebody taking your property is already using force. If they're taking it by force, they've already used force against you, and I think you should have a right to use force against them. And this is the state of property rights in Canada. We don't really have property rights. So what would happen if suppose I have a cabin out in the woods where I live. Oh, what a dream. No, suppose I have a cabin out in the woods where I live, and I go away from my cabin, I lock it up, I go away from my cabin for, a couple of days, go out hunting or fishing or whatever, and then I come back and I find somebody's in my cabin. I go to open the door, and there's somebody in there, and I say, "What are you doing here? Get out of my house." And they say no. They have effectively stolen my property. I can't use force against them to get them to leave under the law. Even if I have a gun in my hand, I'm not even allowed to point the gun at them and say, "Get out of my house or I'll shoot." That's against the law. There's no cops around. This is a cabin out in the woods. There's no neighbors nearby to get some help. And what if this guy outweighs me by, 60 pounds? He's a foot taller than me. What am I supposed to do? Oh well, I guess you own my house now. This is the point, right? Like we don't really have property rights in Canada. If this is the state of the law, we don't really have property rights in Canada. And it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And I may have said this before in other videos. I don't know. All these videos are blurred now. But there are certain aspects of our gun laws in Canada that I like, and there are certain aspects that I don't like. I think we could emulate some of what the United States has, and I think the United States could emulate some of what we have. But that'll never change. Like their laws will never change. Their history is very different from our history. And their laws reflect that. Their Constitution, their Bill of Rights reflect that. Anyway, that's why if you are thinking of voting Conservative, and the Conservative leadership race is in full swing now, I think the best person for somebody who cares about gun laws in Canada and wants to see some common sense brought back to laws in Canada regarding firearms, Maxime Bernier is the candidate. Maxime Bernier. He's essentially a libertarian, and he's running on the Conservative ticket. He's running for the Conservative leadership, and I really do hope he gets it. I know Kevin O'Leary. Everybody's like, "Oh, Kevin O'Leary, he's Canada's Trump." He's definitely not Canada's Trump, and his ideas, his platform, his positions do not reflect a conservative mindset. He's for gun control. So, yeah, Kevin O'Leary's not the guy. Oh, one more thing about Canada's gun laws. It's decided by the police force. Yeah, so the RCMP has a special office devoted to Canadian gun legislation, and anybody in Canada is familiar with this. They have done in the past just basically said, okay, this category of firearm, this particular firearm is now illegal, and turning millions of Canadians into criminals overnight without even notifying them. This is the stupidity of our current gun legislation, gun laws in Canada. Changes in policy, changes in legality of certain firearms is not up to legislature or legislators. It's up to up to our federal police force. Figure that out. Anyway, I'm at work now. I have to go. I'm really late. Thanks for watching. You can like and subscribe to the channel, and you can follow me on Minds. I'm Crag Bragg on Minds. Same on Twitter @CragBragg, and I have a Facebook page. I don't know how long that's going to stay around. Craig Bragg's Jimmy Wrestling Politics page. Anyway, thanks a lot, and have a good one.